This set of relationships is one of the hardest. You know, honestly, once you get it, it's easy, but the catch is getting there when that light bulb hasn't gone off yet for me, for you, for anybody. It's kind of really complicated to understand what the questions are asking you and when to pick these particular relationships. So I'm going to kind of map them out. I'm going to set up a system, and then with practice, I'm pretty sure you'll get these. The light bulb will go off, and then you'll be like, wow, that's not so difficult. So let me start out with a few interchangeable things here. We've got definition, we've got statement, we've got generalization. All right. These three things will often show up with something else. I'm going to list these other things out now. But the thing is that they'll mix and match sometimes. So that's why I kind of want to set up our matrix, and then I'll go through the different combinations and what they'll mean. All right, so a lot of times we'll get example, clarification, and explanation. Oh, actually, you know what? There's one more. Restatement. All right, so sometimes you'll get definition and example. Sometimes you'll get definition and explanation. Sometimes you'll get statement and clarification. Sometimes you'll get generalization and example. Sometimes you'll get generalization and clarification. So as you can see, they can mix and match. So let's start out what each is. Now for a general rule, really, these three are fairly interchangeable. Especially statement and generalization. They're almost the exact same thing. Definition's a little bit different because what's definition going to be? It's going to be a word, and what's going to be with it? Its meaning. All right, folks, I told you this would be super easy once the light bulb went off, right? How much difficult can it be when you see a sentence and it has a word and it said this, you know, whatever word means, and then it gives you the explanation of what that word means. So it's really going to pop out. You will know if you have a relationship within a sentence that is a definition, because that's exactly what it'll be. All right, so that one's probably the easiest. And it is a little different than these because the statement and the generalization won't necessarily have a word that like has been looked up in the dictionary and has been copied in the paragraph, you know. What it'll be more is like a whole idea. A statement of like someone's thinking or someone's opinion. Generalization is going to be kind of like an overall idea, again, about something. So you see, statement and generalization, essentially the same thing. Both of them are essentially the same as definition because you get like a word, which is an idea, and what it means. All right, so that's this side. Let me move over here. These are the ones that are often paired with definition, statement, or generalization. An example is different than an explanation, clarification, or restatement. It's definitely different. These all are kind of the same. So let me explain what example is and how different it is. And let me block these off completely. An example is going to be it's going to have to be specific. It's going to have to be something real or potentially real. Uh-oh, I'm out of paper. All right. Never mind that. I'll just say real. Something real or potentially real. And it's going to be something that tries to paint a picture. So, darn, paper hit. All right, so it's painting a picture. about something that we could actually imagine in real life. So a person, like one time when this person, or such as when a person might or would. So, that's why I don't necessarily say real completely. It could be hypothetical. So it's potentially real. Might not be fact, but it will be a description of something that we can imagine would be possibly happening. Now, there's another word for example, and it's illustration. These are the same. All right, well, often when authors give us a word, tell us what it means, what's the next thing they do, for example, and then they give us a situation, a real situation in which we get a description of something that shows us what that definition tells us. So that's one of the biggest differences between example and everything else. An example, an illustration shows us what they mean. And again, that tracks back to the idea that it has to be something real. Definition is going to tell us what something means. A statement and a generalization is not specific. They are also going to tell us what something means, what an idea is. So now moving over here to clarification, explanation, restatement, these do not show us. These all retell us what was meant by that statement, or what was meant by that generalization, or even what was meant by that definition. So these can mix and match. This way you can be told something by an author and then retold it in slightly different words, right? They're not going to repeat exactly the same thing over again in the same language, but they're going to say what they said, like paraphrasing themselves. So we will get a telling and a retelling, or a defining kind of telling and a retelling, or some kind of telling and a showing. All right, and on occasion, what can happen is the option A, B, C, or D could maybe even only have example or explanation like that, or, then two other things like addition, or let's say time order. All right, so in a multiple choice question, you might have to pick between example and explanation. How are you going to know the difference? Well, are they showing you what they mean using something real or potentially real? Or are they kind of going on, again, repeating what they just said in slightly different words, but without really painting a picture? More kind of brainy, more kind of philosophical, like I do in these videos, right? I explain it and explain it again. It's not until I actually give you something about cats and dogs that I'm giving you an example. All right, so then how are these different than addition? Again, addition's going to have to be more like two things. Two things side by side that can be flipped around. An explanation is not going to be two things. An explanation is going to be the same thing over again. An example isn't going to be two things. An example is going to be the same thing, and it's just going to look a little different because it's going to be a picture rather than an explanation. So that's how addition is different than explanation or example, and of course time order is different because there would actually have to be two events happening, one before the other, and that's completely different than example or explanation.